Hey everybody, welcome to the Hello Road podcast, where we talk about unique and forgotten cars, road trips, travel, racing, writing, automotive journalism, and our current car adventures. My name is Ethan, and my co-host is...
My name is Paul.
And today we have a special guest, our friend and Fiat owner, Adam Hove. Welcome, Adam.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Fiat owner in quotes. Fiat.
Yes, Fiat owner in quotes. That's true.
You got to throw up the Fiat part in quotes specifically because, especially overseas, it would get mad at you. It's a separate brand. Abarth is its own thing.
Yes. Yes.
I would add multi-time Abarth owner and therefore glutton for punishment at this point.
There we go.
All right.
So you know what we're getting into today. We're gonna have to talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
So, but today actually the topic of the day is road rallies. So think Cannonball, Gumball, Modball, Dustball, pretty much anything that ends in the word ball. What's that?
Or run.
Or run. There you go. But yeah.
Or run.
Yep.
Yes.
But there's others too, like our friends at Driving While Awesome put on some great rallies. I've done one, and you've done that twice, Adam?
Twice
You did
now,
it twice.
18 and 19.
Okay. So today we can talk about what we love about road rallies and what we don't like about them. What's the allure? What's the danger? I have a little, we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe like we can even get into, so if we were going to do another rally after this COVID crap is done, what kind of hoopty would we want to use to participate in a rally?
Okay.
So
Yes.
yeah. So I've got a few ideas for that as well, because it could be just basically any of my cars. But before we get into that, I think everybody should know a little bit more about Adam and why do you like cars? Why do you like cars, Adam?
Why cars?
That's a very open-ended question, but
I don't know. They're so stupid. Why do I do this to myself? And I don't even do it for like profit or anything like that. I literally do it because it's just a habit at this point. Well, no. So my first word was wheel. So that was kind of the beginning of the slippery slope for me. I was just kind of born into it. Like my dad was really into it. He kind of brought my mom into the fold when they started dating, and it ran on both sides of the family. And then I think it was kind of like I didn't have a choice. And I mean, not that that's a bad thing. A lot of other kids I knew were like into sports and stuff like that. And I think for me, cars was the substitute. Like kids would, collect baseball cards, and I was collecting Hot Wheels and stuff like that. So it kind of all, it worked out for me. I didn't find out that other people were like me until I was last year. I was like, oh man, there's other people near me that are also into cars. This is crazy. So that's kind of my like backstory. It's just always been part of my life, for better or for worse, both in financial gain and financial failure.
Yes.
Cars are my thing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I've seen other people's hobbies. I like music and I play occasionally, but cars are an easier hobby to stay consistent with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of financial failures and losses, let's talk about your Fiat.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you've owned a Fiat. You've owned the same car twice.
Yes, both.
Okay.
Both 500 Abarths and both 2013s. Coincidentally enough, I think that was the biggest production year for the North American market. Anyway, I bought the first one out of the ashes of a failed project, as I put on my like self-serious Instagram post when I sold it. I was trying to make an 80s vehicle a daily driver, and as a young adult, that was not a smart financial decision given my living situation, my income situation at the time. So I sold it. I literally scraped together everything I had for a down payment, and I was looking at Mark V GTIs and I think it would have been it was the first generation Fiesta, non-ST, like older fits, stuff like that. And I started to see, 500 Abarths. I thought those were really cool when the ads came out, and I remember seeing them at the auto shows. Remember those? Remember when you could go sit in a car in a convention center that 100 people had sat in before you.
Yes.
I barely remember that.
Right. So I remembered really liking them, and I went and drove one, and I was hooked. That was it for me. It totally lived up to the hype. So I bought the first one, sold it because the Radwood FOMO was too real. I was like, I need something to bring to a show. This is such a cool thing. I have to be part of it because I didn't learn my lesson the first time. And then, shocker of all shockers, that turned out to be a bad idea. So I had a Mini in between the last Radwood vehicle and the Abarth that I have now. But the Mini was kind of, like we were talking about before the show, it was kind of a soulless appliance. It was, what if BMW built a GTI? And I think that's where the Abarth comes into its own. Is it's not great, but if you have this idealized version of what a hot hatch is supposed to be, where it's not the nicest thing on the planet, it's not really, comfort takes a back seat to enjoyment and driving fun and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That is where the Abarth excels, and it's I think the everyday driver guys put it best. It's a charming car, and it will never stop working as hard as it can to remind you that it's charming. It doesn't work for some people, but for me, that makes it really endearing. And contrary to popular belief, I know it's, Fiats are unreliable. They are the most reliable vehicles I've owned by far. The first one I bought I bought it right before the warranty expired. And the only thing that went wrong was it tore a CV shaft boot. And I took it to the dealer. I bought an extended warranty. I paid my deductible. They replaced the whole axle. The current one I have, flawless. Literally nothing is wrong with it. Sub 10 grand. It is without a doubt, I think, one of the best things. If you need a modern car that as an enthusiast you can spend $10,000 or less on and get a really rewarding experience from the moment you start driving it.
They're less than $10,000, these cars now?
Both of mine were less than 10 grand.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And if you're not afraid of some mileage, which you shouldn't be, they're even cheaper. They fall into the $6,000-$7,000 range because you love it, but it's not worth a lot of money. Nobody's buying one because it's going to be, it's going to appreciate or anything like that. There's really nothing special about them. They made, I think 2013, the total production number is like 50,000 or something like that. So they're not, special or rare or anything like that. And even overseas, it's just a car to people in England and Central Europe and stuff like that. Like the scene over there is crazier because they're so common. Yeah. So, and then we just get upset because they kept the car exactly the same from 2012 to 2019 when they killed it. And Europe got a bunch of revisions and they got a bunch of special editions and stuff like that. And FCA was like, why is nobody buying this? It's like, because you haven't changed it. You added some colors and refreshed the interior halfway through. And that was pretty much it. Mm-hmm. But it's a great car. It's very much to not belabor the point. It's very much in the spirit of the original GTI, where it's not a special car with a not hot engine. It's just the most powerful volume engine that they had at the time that would fit in the car. Mm-hmm. So it's a bunch of normal parts that come together to make something that adds up to be more than the sum, or more than the parts individually.
Sure. Mm.
Yep. So that was why I fell in love with them in the first place, and that's kind of why the passion stays alive for me. Is as somebody who was not alive to experience the 80s, child. As somebody who wasn't alive to experience the 80s and was never able to buy a Mark I GTI because they don't exist or they are ridiculously expensive, this is like the closest I can get.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And the I have looked at these since you bought it. I started looking at prices of these, and I have fear of missing Fiat fear of missing out, FOMO.
It's silly how cheap they are, and I try and convince people to buy them. And this is like a standing invite to anybody in Southern California. If you want to drive one that's not at a dealer, like seriously, I will let you take it around the block to either make you feel overly positive or be like, wow, this is not for me. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But either way, I want people to experience them because I feel like people just overlook it based on the way it looks and the name, and they never get to see what the car actually is.
It gets written off easily.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And definitely it's a specific type of car that you look at it and you think, okay, I have to not have anybody else that's going to want to drive with me. It's going to be just for me only. It's this. I'm not going to put my kids in the back of this thing. I'm not going to put anybody else in this thing. Actually, I think one of the reasons why I originally wrote it off is because I do remember sitting in it at a auto show and feeling like I didn't fit. But, I was probably overly harsh and just like, what's this stupid little car?
You're at the upper height limit too. Like,
sure. Yeah.
I think you can't be much taller than like 6'2" or maybe 6'3" if you can, find a driving position that's comfortable for you. I think that's the biggest turnoff to anybody who gets past the image is the driving position's a little weird. Like the way I describe it to people is it's like driving a little like a van, basically. Because the way they designed the car was to fit as much interior volume in as short of a footprint as possible. Mm-hmm. So you can fit 3 adults in the car with the way the dash is set up and how far you can move the passenger seat up.
Yeah.
But that also means that they had to put the front seats really far off the ground. So your H point is way higher than, like, for example, Paul, it would be in your Fit.
Yeah.
Because Fit is, lower and the seats are lower. And in the Fiat, to make people feel more comfortable with driving something that small and to maximize space, they basically move the seats up and forward closer to the dash. So,
interesting.
So you sit on top of the pedals, which is actually really cool for heel towing and stuff like that. Cause you're basically, you're dancing on top of them instead of pushing away from you, which is kind of nice. One thing that frustrates me is there's no telescope on the steering wheel. So you have the Italian steering wheel position where it's always angled away from you. Even if you bring it down into your lap, the top is always canted away. And I just try and tell myself that it's like driving a 308 Ferrari where, it's very comfortable, but, I'm driving something Italian. It's part of the thing. So.
Oh, that's cool. I can, we talk about how it gets written off a little bit, and I can see that, and people get turned off by the way it looks. Like I personally love the way these things look. They look like
I do too.
They look like a Paul car. I'm surprised I haven't owned one, but now that I know they're less than $10,000, I don't know, maybe. But
now is the time to buy.
Now is the time to buy. But I think the other thing that I think turns some people off specifically with the Abarth. Did I say it right? I've been corrected 80 different times.
It's Abarth. The H does not exist.
Abarth.
But I think in the US they just kind of were like Abarth, whatever. It doesn't matter.
That's what people are going to say.
Yeah, everybody's going to say Abarth. So.
But it's the sound, the lack of muffler, which I think is cool. When when Dodge did that with the neon the SRT4. Can't say neon in front of it, or else our neon fans will get mad at us.
Everybody was like neon SRT4.
Yeah, it was always the SRT4. They never had the neon in front of it. There was no word on there, no neon on it, except for I think the owner's manual. But don't quote me on that. That's just stupid Paul car knowledge that I have tucked away in the recesses of my mind. But no, I think that people were like, "Is something wrong with it? Why does it sound that way?" Because there was. I just remember reading an article, maybe it was on Jalopnik or something, way, way back in the day when the cars came out, and people were like, the dealers, like some of them didn't know that it had no muffler, and they were like, yeah, I guess that's just the way they sound. But it did turn people off because it's kind of
it's very loud.
It's very loud.
It's very loud.
Yeah. It's off-putting that some little tiny car.
Yeah, and I mean,
like
you either like the fact that if you really wanted to, you could set off car alarms in any parking garage you drove into, or that really bothers you.
yeah.
And, that's personal preference. A funny note about that is that some early 2012s have a weird like clamshell thing that goes over the exhaust pipes at the back of the car that's meant to look like a muffler, but the exhaust is exactly the same inside the suitcase.
Weird.
That's crazy.
Big like stamped stainless thing that clamps over the pipes that are under the back of every other Abarth that you see.
That is so strange.
Super weird.
Well, I give it to Fiat for bringing the enthusiast model over here pretty much really quickly after they brought the regular 500 to us. They're like, here's your enthusiast model, not like another car company, Honda, who took how many generations of Civic and wonderful Civic Type Rs before they finally gave us Ethan's best favorite looking car of the year.
Oh, I'm gonna throw up a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's something that I commend Fiat on, and the fact that it has no muffler, that's just total, hooligan shit that I love. So, I'm a giant child, and that's totally up my alley.
Yeah.
Why haven't I owned an Abarth? I'm thinking about this for the next little bit.
Don't trade in your Fit for one.
No.
But if anything ever happens to the Fit, then think about it.
Okay. My kids can buckle. Well, the one's older, but my other kid, she just is now able to buckle her own seatbelts. So
nice.
You can fit a car seat in the back of a Fiat.
Yeah, get in the back of the Fiat, kids.
Did an article. Can baby.
You can baby.
Short period, and yes, it can baby. You can fit a stroller and a child in there.
That's ridiculous. Before we move on to the rally stuff, though, we do have to talk about the two vehicles that you didn't mention. Your brief love affair with vehicles from the 80s and 90s.
Oh yeah.
There was a Camaro there, right?
So the first one, well, I've owned multiple Radwood era vehicles, but those were ones where I was like deliberately trying to have something Radwood centric because that was after Radwood existed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like I thought I was really cool when I was in high school because I had, a 94 Volvo wagon. And so I was like, oh man, I'm, the cool guy with the old car before Radwood was a thing, before anybody knew what that was. But my first one that I bought that ended up being a failure was the world's only unreliable Toyota pickup. For some reason, I bought the worst one.
Jeez, how is that possible?
I know, that's what I thought too. It was an 88 Toyota pickup. It was like all the cool options. So it was the 22 RE 4-cylinder, 5-speed 4-wheel drive, extra cab. It was tan, like decals on the sides.
And the 88 was the boxier one, right? The rounder one came like 90 or something. Yeah. Okay.
It was when it was just the pickup. Like it was called a Toyota pickup.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was actually the last year of the like square Toyota pickup. Yeah. But yeah, I spent months and every dollar of my savings as a recent college graduate at the time trying to make it work properly, and every time I did something else went wrong or broke, and I was nowhere near as confident in my own skills as I am now to be able to like diagnose and fix these problems. So I sold it to I thought it was going to be sold for parts because it got to the point where I couldn't drive it because one of the rear brake drums was like seizing so bad in the like the cylinders were seizing so bad in the drum that the wheel would be too hot to touch.
Oh man.
Like skip across the pavement. And I thought, it was something worse, and I kind of diagnosed it and figured out that was what it was. But I was like, I can't fix this. My living situation at the time, I didn't have any place to work on it. So I sold it for what I thought was parts for way less than I paid for it, buy high, sell low.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Right. And then I saw it a couple months later, parked somewhere for sale, like just behind a gas station with a for sale sign on it. And I was like, oh, cool. So they fixed it. That's nice. And the Camaro was slightly better, but I realized that those cars are awful to drive every day.
Yeah.
Because they were not screwed together well. So it was a 99.
99. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
99 Camaro. The full thing is the Z28 SS.
Oh,
yeah.
So it had LS1 and the T56 6-speed. It was really cool. It was the color that I wanted. It was pewter. It had the right wheels on it. It had the T-tops. Like it was, as cool as a Camaro from that era could be, considering what people think of the Catfish 4th gen F bodies.
Yeah.
But it needed more love than I could give it. I overpaid for it. I should have walked away when the seller was like, no, this is the lowest I can go. And I'm like, oh, that seems like a lot. So I tried to make it nice. I spun it once in the rain because that car had no traction control at all, which is funny because the V6s did have traction control, but the V8s didn't. So I actually haven't told too many people that story, but yeah, I spun it once in the rain, making a left turn on a greasy intersection. And after that, I never trusted the car. And then
wow.
I couldn't put the love into it that I wanted to, and driving it every day from a gas standpoint, from a safety standpoint, stuff like that, I was like, I can't do this. So I sold that to a guy that I actually found on Instagram a couple years later, who has since pulled the motor out and is like building it into, I think he's building it into like a 383 stroker, like gnarly. It's going to be, 600 horsepower, all motor thing. And I'm like, well, cool. I'm glad it's making you happy.
Until he hits that first greasy intersection.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Until he
spins even faster.
Right. But yeah, so then after that, I bought the Mini. I went back to being sensible, owning something with a warranty. And then I got tired of that after like a year and a half. And, a lot of like fun driving experiences with it, but I never bonded with it. And to say that the Abarth spoiled me from that perspective was a bit of an understatement. Like that car really spoiled me as far as like an emotional and like connection based standpoint was, because it does really draw you in, and it endears itself to you fairly quickly if you're welcoming to that sort of thing, or you're into that sort of car. So yeah, after the Mini, I bought the Abarth, and I haven't looked back. I've told everybody I know I'm never selling this one. I bought it with such low mileage that I don't think I could find another one that is this nice without spending way more money. So yeah, I'm going to keep it, drive it, make this one my own more from like a personalization standpoint, and kind of, I've always seen them as little rally cars. So trying to add that vibe. So I did mud flaps on the first one, but I did the red urethane mud flaps on this one. I have a set of lights that need to go on the front. So I'm excited to just kind of keep working at it and make it more my own and enjoy driving it. Because now I'm confident from that perspective. Like I think I've gotten better as a driver in the 4 years since I owned the first one. So I'm excited to be able to actually like enjoy driving this one and maybe do some autocross at some point, or something like that. Something a little more, get to use it a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. That's awesome. I mean, it's you had the chance to experience it once and know what it was like to miss it. So for sure.
Very fortunate to have been able to buy another one.
Yes.
Because I know there's a lot of people who fall in love with something and then they sell it and they're never able to get it back.
Sure. Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so you take it on some autocrosses, maybe take it on a rally. That's the topic of the day. Yes, definitely did want to take it on a rally. So hopefully you'll be able to do that soon.
Yeah, I would really like to. I'm actually, I guess, not to cross promote, but 50 Year Storm is doing a like COVID safe rally this year. So yeah, they're good friends of mine, and they're good dudes all around. So I was more than happy to indulge their COVID safe rally experiment. So I'm excited to see how that goes, and I'm excited to do it in the Abarth. I'm stoked to see the routes and be able to drive the car, on some good roads over a couple of days and get to enjoy that with hopefully some good people, whomever wants to be part of my bubble, I guess.
I kind of want to do that.
Yeah,
I kind of want to do that.
You guys are definitely on my short list of people to contact once I get the route book. I'm excited.
Nice. That's
sweet.
Cool.
So yeah, I guess we should maybe go back a little bit. Everybody talks about Cannonball. That's like the one everybody talks about. There's movies made about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like the one that was the first time I ever heard about rallies was through the Cannonball Run and all the antics.
Run 2 and
exactly.
Run 3, and then all the the knockoffs that came out. Like that was it was the same with me. It was the first time I had heard about it was through the movies, and growing up, much like Adam and also how we've discussed before, like just being a car kid.
Yeah.
Since I was little, I was like, you go to the awesome video rental stores. Which
what is that? What is a VHS?
Oh, it was the place where you used to go. Well, no, it was awesome to see the covers of it, like especially like Cannonball Run. Like there was that red Countach that was like in the center, and I think there was like Bigfoot on the cover. And
that original cover is iconic.
And I want to go back and watch that movie as like somebody nearly 40 years old and see how inappropriate it probably was for a child to watch that movie. But I was watching it for the cars. Like, I know there was some risque stuff, but like there was a lot of those movies that were out there, and that's really kind of what got me intrigued into it. And you as well. Have you seen Cannonball Run, Ethan? I know you haven't seen a whole ton of movies. You told me once you saw like 3 movies. So,
yeah, I really don't. I don't watch that many movies, but I saw that one ages ago. I probably don't remember much about it, but it definitely there's so much to love about those movies, even though they're kind of cheesy and corny.
I don't think it's one of those movies like that one, Speed Zone, Gumball Rally. Any of those had any sort of. They weren't looking for any Oscar nominations. Movie.
Definitely
not. But man, there were some cool movies in it. Really, like from being a kid watching them, especially if you're into cars, like seeing it, like you didn't understand what they were really doing. Maybe was totally legal,
right?
But you're like, man, look how cool that Lamborghini looks out there, or that Mitsubishi Starion, or whatever it was that was in Cannonball Run. Was it a Starion they used?
I have no idea.
I don't remember.
Either. And then Bigfoot was in the thing, and like that was, a kid like me in the 80s. You see Bigfoot, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But you don't really think about the legality of all that stuff. And
and back then it didn't seem, at least to me, when I look back at when those movies were filmed, it seemed like it wasn't as bad of an idea then as it is now.
No.
Just because there was way fewer people on the roads, there was way more open road, fewer people in I don't know.
Well, and everybody paid more attention too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pre-cell phone, everybody was generally focused on either what station they were tuning their radio to, or like where to put their cup before the invention of the cup holder.
Yes. That's a good point.
Of your distraction.
That's true.
Yeah. And, I think more recently you get these more and more, people are trying to one up each other on social media. There's YouTube channels that are devoted to, talking about how cool these latest Cannonball Run times are. And it's impressive, but in general,
it's frightening.
I remember reading this article like right when COVID started happening, and there was a former Cannonball Run record holder had said, I won't name his name, but he said something that like, it's really irresponsible to be doing this right now because you could hit a truck that's trying to deliver masks. I don't remember exactly what he said.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, it's irresponsible no matter what's going on. Like,
it's always irresponsible.
It's just like his way of saying, well, I did it before COVID, so I'm okay. But all these people that are doing it now, beating my record, no, that's not cool.
You're doing a really good impression of the person that you're not naming.
But I just that made me, that didn't make me angry. It just made me like think about the whole idea of these attempts that I never, I like it in movie form. I don't think I like it in real life form, just because there's going to be a point at some point where somebody's going to do this and they're going to kill a family or something, you know?
Yeah, right.
That's just going to happen at some point. And I don't know. I just, the whole devotion to try to like highlight how cool these people are just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
I get it, but I also understand that it's like way over the line, irresponsible, and like safe ways to do it, big old air quotes, but at the same time, it's by its very nature, it's very unsafe.
Yeah.
And you look at the average speed and I'm like,
the guys that did it last year averaging like into the low 100-mile-an-hour. I think it's like
112 or 118 or something. I'm like, yikes. And that's the average. So there was times when they were going faster than that, and easily. And I mean, Ethan, you've driven across country. I've driven halfway across the country, and that's it, and then back. But there's some sections, and I don't know if you've ever driven across country, Adam, but there's some sections out there, like I just think about how scared I was driving through the state of the hell state was that? Wyoming. There was like, in Montana, there was like nobody around, which was like interesting. Like if I hit a deer, like done.
I experience, not like a bad experience, but just with driving by myself through like central Utah on a work related trip.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point I was like, okay, I need to go faster so that I can get to where I'm going quicker and like minimize my time by myself on the stretch of road where I haven't seen anybody for half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having a conversation with the podcast that I'm listening to because that's my only experience with it. But yeah, I can't even imagine doing it to deliberately go, as fast as possible. And I know that they're taking more heavily traveled routes because they're wider and flatter and stuff like that. But still, I can't even imagine doing that. And the kind of like, okay, I just need to put my inhibitions like in, I need to leave them in New York at the start and basically just turn off that part of my brain that's about self-preservation for the entire 3,000-mile trip across the US.
Yeah. It's
that my brain doesn't work that way.
You got to be wired a certain way to do it. Yeah. And I guess it's just something I'm not wired that way. Like it says, in movie form, or in some cases, I guess you would say book form.
Right. Yes.
It's interesting to watch, or it's entertaining to watch and interesting to read. There was the book that came out couple of years back, well, I guess more than probably about 10 years ago now, I guess, that Alex Roy wrote.
Right, yes.
The Driver, I believe it was. And I was bought into that book because he had an E39 M5. Like, that's literally why I bought the book. And then I read the book and I was like, it was well written, and I'm sure Alex listens to our podcast, so thank you for writing that. But no,
probably wouldn't appreciate me calling him out earlier in the podcast.
But no, it was an interesting read to see all that went into it. And I think when he did that run, that was still at a time when it was pre-level of distraction that we're at now.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
The stuff, the way that the car was set up and everything like that was just absolutely like James Bond shit. And, I don't condone what he did, but at the same time, it's just like, what's the?
It's impressive. It's impressive.
It's impressive. Yeah. Anytime anybody goes that quick across the country is impressive, but it just, especially now as a father, it's scary and dangerous to think, what if someday, somebody else is crossing the country in the minivan going the opposite direction, and you don't want to really think about that, but like it could happen, and that's not cool. But just from the technological perspective of it was impressive what the feats that people will go to get across. Like, the original Cannonball Run that was a real thing. The whatever they called it, the thing that was done by Brock Yates, was it? In protest of the 50th
trophy, but I can't remember what the name attached to it is.
It was, I think it was Brock Yates.
Cannonball Baker Memorial.
There you go, Cannonball Baker. C2C Memorial or something.
Yeah.
It was in the early days of it where it wasn't like there was no technology and stuff. It's like, oh, we just put 2 gas tanks in the van. I think wasn't it a van that did it like the first time? And like that's literally how they didn't have to stop for gas. So they just it's kind of like the whole thing. If you build it, they will come. That's what I was trying to go with earlier. It's like, well, the road's going from one coast to the other is there. So let's see how fast we can go. Humans are going to do it. That's just.
Well, one of the guys that did it last year in rental Mustang GT.
Yeah.
That story is wild. He basically turned the car into a rolling bomb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, he removed everything except for the driver's seat and replaced all of it with fuel tanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What?
You turn off, like you said, you turn off the inhibition, you turn off your self-preservation. You're just, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out literally in a ball of flames.
And you were going out on fire.
On fire, literally. Well, I mean, we talk about rally. There's like that kind of rally where you're talking about crossing. You're going from point to point. Like that's really the true meaning of rally. And like, there's like rally, you think about like rally racing, like you think of some of these wonderful, rally cars from the past, Group B era, current World Rally Championship and stuff like that. And it's point to point. And I think that the term kind of has, it's kind of like when you say I'm into heavy metal. Well, what kind of heavy metal are you into? Are you
exactly?
There's so many facets to it.
Norwegian death rock? Are you into the, whatever it is, all the different facets.
Gent polka, that's a new thing that you need to get into. It's my favorite new genre.
The same can be kind of said though about rally. There's different versions of it. There's getting from point A to B as fast as you can, but then there's also like, I mean, I guess you can kind of say like just getting from point A to point B while enjoying things is kind of like touring, right? Or grand touring.
Yeah. Well, and I think the idea of like the kind of rallying that we're kind of like circling around stems more from like the idea of like a time, speed, distance rally.
Right.
Where the idea is to show up at the exact right time, and you get penalized. These are like SCCA sanctioned events where, the whole goal is to show up at the right time. And I think that's kind of where like our kind of rallying evolved from is, you're trying to get from here to here, not too fast or you can't enjoy it, but not so slowly that you're not having any fun.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I remember these at the LA Auto Show in the downstairs hall that SCCA used to always have a booth there. And it was back when the LA Auto Show used to be in January. Yeah, it was right after the first of the year. And they'd always they'd have a sign up sheet there for, come join us at our first of the year time TSD or whatever. What did they call them? TSD rally?
TSD.
And I remember that going down there the year, I was probably 01. So it was when one of my car crushes came out, the first generation Prius. And I remember I think they had a Toyota Prius sitting in their booth and they said, time TSD rally, even this Prius could do it. And it was like some silly thing like that because it was like making fun of the Prius being a slow, nerdy car. But like, it's really open for anybody. It didn't matter the car if you were in at the time, a brand new hybrid car, where it's not, like you said, not how it's making sure you enjoy it by not going too slow, but also not going too fast, or in the SCCA's case, because you're on public roads and like families in minivans could do it. You're not even breaking the speed limit. You have to stay at that speed or else they're going to be like, oh, you were 5 seconds early, so you sped. So
you go to jail.
Go to jail. No. But I remember seeing that, and I always wanted to kind of sign up for one because they're like, oh yeah, it goes through like the Santa Monica mountains and stuff, which is a fun place in itself. So I never did one. I just went there without doing a time, speed, distance rally, and did other things that were kind of on that same wavelength that we were talking about earlier about.
I also performed that feat recently this past weekend.
Oh,
I was up in the Santa Monica Mountains, there was snow, which was just the strangest thing.
I saw that. I think
you were in Malibu, right? You posted a picture from Malibu, and there was snow, and I was like, okay, this is odd for Southern California.
It was weird.
Yeah,
it was really weird.
Yeah.
That when I think rally, besides those things, I think about, especially in Southern California, like a very large part of my automotive upbringing was spent in the hills neighboring my home state or home city of Glendora. I don't want to say the name of the road on the thing, so I don't want to blow it up since people don't know about it. I'm just kidding. Everybody knows what it is. But
thanks, Matt Farah. He started using it now.
Oh, he is he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. I mean, it's a great road. So,
and I know he listens, so I'm doxing you, Matt.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But that was like the real genesis of like my performance. I'm going to say performance driving, but I used to drive that road in my my Volkswagen Beetle, and it was a little interesting in a Beetle, to say the least, especially the downhill with 4-wheel drum brakes. But I didn't know. I didn't know any different. That was my car. I didn't know that cars could brake better. So it was really cool getting to like learn that road in a Beetle.
Yeah.
Because after that I switched it and I got my Mustang, which was a completely different story up there. But yeah, like the idea of getting from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill as fast as you could.
Yeah.
When I was a 20,
a young adult,
19, 20 into 21, in that couple years of my life, you just, like you said about, you just forget about your sense of self-preservation. And
yes,
that was what my life was dedicated to for 3 years, literally. I'm not even joking, in my Mustang. And like up until the road got closed because there was a big old fire up there in 2003. And that was the point every night, was to get from point A to point B as fast as you could. And once you got to point B, then if you really wanted to have fun, you went from point B to point C and then back to point B as fast as you could. And it was not safe. That's the thing, I saw many, many, many accidents happen, and helped my fair share of people going into a ditch to flip a car back over. It was a crazy time. It was a really crazy time up there in the early 2000s. It's still there, and I guess it still pops off and stuff. But there was a time when we got bored there. Me and my buddies, like my friends that I still have to this day, are because of driving up in the canyons. And we would go and take little trips, and we'd go to Malibu, and we would go drive out there. And there was a big loop we would do. And there was a time that we're past the statute of limitations, but there was a time when the cops were on us and they didn't catch us. It was nice. Pretty wild up there in Malibu. It was a ton of fun. And then driving down to Palomar Mountain, doing like these nice. It just felt like rally drivers, because you'd be like, okay, we're gonna go. Where are we going this tonight, or where are we going this weekend? Oh, we're going down here. Oh, we're going up here.
Yeah, you got to do your transit stage to the actual like rally stage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Have your fun on the rally stage, and then you have to transit back to
we used to do a run on 39 on Azusa to the other road that people know what it is, but we would use a road in Glendora that was just like a kind of a straight shot between them, is like the transit stage, and it would be like 2 or 3 in the morning, and we're just flying down it, and it was not smart. None of it was smart.
But like you think about it's not smart, but at the same time, I'm totally more down with that type of driving than like a cross country speed topic, because if you're gonna hurt anybody, it's gonna be yourself. It's not gonna be somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
More often than not, you're ending up in the side of the mountain, and like that. At that point, it's your own fault.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, that is true. It is. There's less of a chance of hurting somebody else because it would be rare, especially in those days. It would be rare to run into anybody else that was like just driving up the road for fun, unless they were like kids looking to go have a good time, and in which case, people would know like, oh, here come the cars that are driving like assholes. Get out of their way,
right?
But yeah, it could have been safer than it was, and I did, like I said, I did have my fair share of people that, crashed and went off, edges and stuff.
And I don't think it's just youth that causes that. I also think it's money, because I was just thinking about like Gumball Rally. You know, that's one of those things where, people are paying $70,000-$80,000 or something to do this thing. So I don't know that.
You got to make it like worth your while because you're spending all the time and money.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to be stupid.
Yes, I think that's a really good way to put it, for sure. Like, I'm totally fine with the type of driving you're talking about, Paul. Just because, I mean, I don't do it personally anymore because I'm old and like weak, and I have a kid. I'm fine with areas where you feel like if you're only gonna go into a ditch yourself and you're not going to take out somebody else, it's like, go for it.
Right. Well,
you do you.
Exactly.
It's like you said, maybe it wasn't youth, but like, it's just maybe the maturity, because now, like, I've gone on drives with you guys before and like totally fun, especially like, during the daytime, that makes it.
And with those types of drives, like the drives that we did, I don't know how long ago that was now. That was like,
that was so long ago.
It was like the beginning of COVID. So it's like 10 years ago, I think. I mean, that was one of those things where you just pushed it a little bit. You're not going too crazy. I mean, I don't know how hard you were pushing it in your Fit, but I was not pushing it very hard in my in the 944.
You guys didn't push it that hard, but the poor little Fit,
Well, that's the best thing about having a Fit, is that you can drive the snot out of it, and
totally agree. That's the best part about the car.
Yeah, that's what I love about my Nova. It's just like you're just constantly like 7,500 RPM, like we're all the way to the red line,
and you're doing 30 miles an hour. That's the best.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't mean it in a mean way or anything, because like it's the same thing with the charade. The charade's like it. My kids go on the charade with me, and they're like, "Oh my god, you're going so fast!" And it's like, I'm doing 25. It just sounds loud, and
and the A-pillar is the size of a pencil. It just, you feel unsafe because it is.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun with it. But like those kind of drives, those are a ton of fun now, and I feel like it's come with maturity. Like it's been a very long time since I've driven up any of those roads at night, and it's mostly because the self-preservation is kicked in, obviously, with kids and everything. But even then, it's just the maturity comes with it. Would I still do it? Hell yeah, I would still do it. If somebody said, you want to go drive tonight, I'd be like, okay. I guess. Twist my arm and go have a good time at night.
It's like a once every so often thing, not like I'm going out every night, with my friends to 39, and we know we're tearing up, and we got our our stopwatches and stuff like that. We're trying to see who can set the fastest time from the stop. But if somebody wanted to go on like a night run now, I would probably be like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But like, it's not my preferred time of day to drive for sure.
It used to be, but that's kind of, when I hear the word rally, that's kind of what I think about. I mean, I think about the cross country stuff, but I think about just like, we're going to go
back roads.
Especially in Southern California, because we've got such, I would say Southern California has an amazing set of roads, but I know Northern California, I've never driven up there, but the whole state
is kind of crisscrossed with all these little, some are even like a lane and a half wide, like the one you were talking about, Paul, that we're not going to mention, no center line and stuff like that. When you stumble across something like that, you're like, oh man, I've found quote unquote, rally gold.
Yeah.
Because that's the closest you get to being on a closed rally stage in the type of driving that we're talking about, where maybe you don't have a co-driver reading you pace notes, but you're driving the road, you're only driving what you can see. Odds are that there's no traffic coming towards you, so you can have a little more fun with it. And that's kind of like in the same vein. That's what I think of. And so I think we're exceptionally lucky in California to have a lot of roads like that, within anywhere from a few minutes, depending on where you live, to a couple hours away. You can be right in the thick of these really good roads that you could spend not just one day, but multiple days driving.
Totally.
And I know, Ethan, you have experience with that in the Northern California area with the one DWA rally you went on, and I've kind of messed around with that too with those guys. So I mean, we're lucky for sure.
Sure. And it's not just the roads. I mean, especially Central and Northern California. I mean, even Southern California too. There's just so many areas where you got this amazing road, and then you kind of like look off to the side and be like, oh, I should probably stop because it's beautiful. There was a bunch of places like that on the what we went all the way to Lassen National. Is it National Forest or State Park? I can't remember. But anyway, it's so many great roads that are just amazing, really amazing roads. And you do this rally for the day, and then up through like the areas where there's like volcanic rocks everywhere, and then you drive down the hill for a few hours, and now you're at the redwoods. So there's just so much great stuff to look at on these amazing roads. So
even down here, you can go from Anza Borrego, which is more or less like a cut and paste of Death Valley, and then you come around a corner and go up a hill, and all of a sudden you're in pine trees, and you're at 6,800 feet, and it's wild how you can go from one area to the other so quickly and have that scenery change. And that's the beauty of it too, is getting to actually see these places and be out in them, and not be like, okay, well, we got to make it here by 4:00 so we can check into the hotel. It's we've got all day, and the whole point is to see what we can see going from where we start to where we end.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And it's funny. I was thinking about where I grew up in Massachusetts. There were a lot of good roads, but there were also there was a lot of houses and farms and traffic and stuff. Not a ton of traffic, but there was enough where you could never really push it as much as you can on some of these roads that are just going up to the top of a mountain where nobody lives, So,
man, I mean, it's raining here in Southern California, right? But it's really making me itch to go drive.
Yeah. I mean, you're lucky, because for you it's a literal stone's throw from like your driveway to the base of the mountain, whereas I'm like, okay, well, it's going to take me 30 minutes to get up there if I drive briskly.
Yeah.
And then
I am lucky and also unlucky that it's so close, because it can open things up to be like, hey, maybe I should take a quick detour and go that way.
Yeah.
When I lived in Upland, it was a little bit harder to resist, because sometimes it would be quicker for me to take the road through Glendora and spit out at Mount Baldy and then down to Upland. It was faster to do that than to go on the freeway, because it was bumper to bumper traffic. So, and I would do that, a couple times a week in the daytime, and it was a ton of fun. I mean, I was on my commute home. Happened to take this little couple extra mile detour, a lot extra mile detour, but it was worth it. Tons of fun.
Adam, you and I have both done the Driving While Awesome Coastal Range Rally. What did you like about that? About that particular experience and also it's 50-year storm too. You've done that as well. Yeah. Like, what were the things you really liked about it?
I think my favorite thing, and it's not really specific to their rally, but they do a good job when they set the bar really high, is like the thought that goes into it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, there's something to be said with just meeting up with people and going, okay, well, we're going to go this way and see where we end up. But I like that, it's like an actual thing. You feel like you're part of something. Like, you get the rally booklet and you get stuff like that, and you're like, oh, we got to, navigate, make sure we don't miss this turn and stuff like that. There's a real sense of adventure to it. And I think that a lot of us when you drive for your commute or you drive to, like pick your kids up from school or whatever, you kind of, if you're inclined that way, you kind of lose the sense of adventure that comes with driving. And so to be able to have an experience like that kind of reaffirms that like it is something other than just a means to get from here to there. It's an adventure and it's something else. That's really the big draw for me. And I also like seeing all the wide spectrum on both of those rallies, Coastal Range and 50-Year Storm, the wide spectrum of stuff that people bring, because you've got like 50-Year Storm, the last one that I was on, I was in there with my late model Mini that wasn't really anything special. Then you got a guy with a 240Z, and you got a guy with a 964 era 911, and there were a couple older BMWs. And it's cool to see all the stuff that has no business being in the same place and would never have didn't exist at the same time, all serving the same end of enjoying yourself on that perfect stretch of road and kind of having that, bonding over that sensation and the diversity that comes with that too. Like, the guy in a 2002 and me and my Mini, on the face of it, we have nothing in common, but we can compare and contrast when when we stop for lunch or whatever and go, oh, you look like you were really working on that section of road, or wow, I was really struggling to keep up with you, in your 40-year-old or 50-year-old, 4-cylinder BMW with 130 horsepower, and me and my Mini with, ABS and traction control, I'm like really having to concentrate and work to keep up. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that there's a lot of good aspects of it, but yeah, it's I think the sense of adventure is like the best part of it for me, like getting to experience a car for more than just an appliance.
Totally. Yeah. And that's exactly the same thing that I got out of it as well, is just, I love the wide variety of cars that you'd see. I love for me, it was about that sense of adventure. It was about the navigation. It's about kind of not exactly knowing where you're going to end up. And at the end of the day, you're looking at this map that gives you some turns and you're like, well, where are we going to end up? So it's kind of, it's sort of a mystery, and all of the little places along the way that you would have never came across because you took a different route instead of a major highway or something. And really the other thing I loved about it was just meeting all sorts of just random different people that I would have never met otherwise, that, completely different walks of life, completely different stages in their life, but all have something in common of wanting to do something stupid with cars.
Well, and the wild part of that for me is Brad Brownell, who was on your show or 2 episodes ago now.
Yep.
He asked me to go on the first Coastal Range without ever having met him in person. Like we were weird internet friends at that point, and like this is when he still had his podcast, and Radwood was in its infancy and stuff like that, and we'd literally never met. We were part of the same like Facebook group message, and he was like, hey, do you want to go on Coastal Range Rally? Knowing that I kind of knew what it was and had seen pictures and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I got to spend 5 days in a car with a dude that I've literally spent 30 minutes with at the first Southern California Radwood. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And it's like, what else would bring people together in a similar manner?
Sure.
Like, is something about the car and what it can do and where it can take you brings people, like you were saying, from totally different walks of life, little in common, don't even live in the same area, and you're getting together because this is the thing that you like to do. You like to drive, you like to experience the road and the car and other people's cars and different parts of the state or the country or whatever that you would never see, all for the sake of, it's a very fortunate thing to be able to do that and to be in a position where you can get to experience things like that.
Sure, definitely. What do you think, Paul? You've wanted to do this, right? You've wanted to go on a rally.
Oh yeah, I've definitely wanted to do it. I mean, the closest thing that I've came to doing that was years ago with the Mini Club. There was a rally, I guess you can say a rally, where it was just kind of it was a very long 1-day thing, but it was very cool and got to experience a place I had never actually been before, and with all the mini people and stuff. So it was, it was kind of, it was cool. It was a lot of fun. I think the one thing that I did miss about that, like we kind of touched on, was it was kind of like a get there as fast as you can type of a thing. And there was so much cool stuff I wanted to see. I had my wife with me at the time, and I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to come back and see this. Oh, it'd be really cool to come back and see this. Oh, that's a really cool view right here. But nope, we got to keep up with the group. So that was the thing that kind of, I could have done, that I think would have been better, was to getting to stop more. But it was still fun, I guess. I still hadn't been as mature as I was. I was trying to keep up with everybody in my little Cooper, and everybody is in their Cooperesses, and now it's
yeah, but I bet you were having more fun though, because you were actually
you had to work harder.
I did have to work harder, and yeah, I think I did. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a good time. That's the only thing like that I've ever been on. I would love to do like one of those like Coastal Ranger 50-year storm rally, but I think it would just be like funny because I'd be in the back in the charade, or
There was a guy in a Volkswagen Thing on the last 50-year storm that was just there to be there.
Okay.
Yes.
He made no aspirations about keeping up with the rest of us. He and his co-pilot were just cruising along the route, picking us up at the lunch stops and stuff like that, and meeting up, and we saw him on the side of the road. They would always let us pass. So there's no shame in being in something that's
yeah, and I wouldn't be shameful of being in it, but it's just, the kind of I guess you would say the temperature of those rallies would lean further away from taking 53 horsepower 3-cylinder car.
Well, I think maybe what needs to happen is there needs to be a slow car fast rally where you've got under 130 horsepower, and I mean, what do you got on the Fiat?
I'm at 160. I'm out.
Oh, you're out. Sorry. Yeah. I've got most of my cars are under 130. So, but yeah, I mean that would be kind of an interesting thing to do, where it's like, it's only cars that have less than 150 horsepower or something like that.
Put a restrictor plate on the Fiat. That's cool.
Yeah, give her a restrictor plate. There you go. We'll hand them out before the rally.
I'll unplug oil packs and it'll run on 3 cylinders.
There you go. There you go.
That would work. Yeah. No, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing too, because you'd get a really diverse group of things that have less than 150 horsepower that are still interesting.
Yes, definitely.
We look at some of these older cars, like you mentioned the BMW 2002s, and I mean, I may or may not know a thing about the thing or two about them due to my place of employment, I mean, 90 horsepower on a good day out of one of those little M10 engines, maybe 99 horsepower, but it was more than enough to propel that little car. And they were quick for the day. They're totally not quick now, but for its day they were quick. And even like the E21s, that's another one that's like, it's quick for the day, but it's totally less than 130 horsepower car. Even the Fit is rated at 138, so the Fit wouldn't qualify for. Yeah, it's rated at 138. Yeah, I don't really think that's true. I think it probably has more like 100. But
we'll bring a dyno to the beginning of the rally. Everybody gets a dyno. We'll see what it makes at the wheels, and then we'll be.
If you're over,
you're out.
You're out.
Sorry. Entry fee is non-refundable. You should have known.
Oh, that would be great. That would be so much fun.
So I mean, before we started recording, we were talking about the potential of the Hello Road Rally. This was something that Paul, you and I discussed at January 2020. We're like 2020. Yeah, when was that? 70 years ago. Yeah, we were gonna do this rally. It's gonna be great. 2020 is gonna be.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, 2020 is going to be the year of the Hello Road Rally, and then you know what happened. So, but we've got potentially. My parents just got vaccinated. I know that the vaccines are kind of rolling out. Maybe by December we'd have hopefully most people vaccinated. That we might be able to do something. We're talking with Adam about maybe providing all of his rally insight to help us with something. So I don't know if the listeners have any ideas of what they would want to see on a rally. That would be awesome to hear, because I think we should try to put something together, because
I agree.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great rallies out there. It's not, I don't even think what we would do would even we would try to do something different, try to do something that just kind of gives people a different flavor. So it's basically New York to LA. No.
130 horsepower.
Exactly.
130 horsepower. You got to get there as fast as possible.
In Kei cars. They have to be Kei cars.
In Kei cars.
Not small Japanese cars. I'm talking about literally Dodge Aries, Plymouth Reliance.
Oh, I got all excited for a second. I was like already on the internet's trying to find a Kei car. Well,
no, it's any variation of the Kei car, which includes many different cars.
Kei car or Kei car. That's what it could be. Kei car.
It's both. That would be awesome. I love that idea. Now I have to go buy an Aries.
I'm buying a first gen Caravan.
There you go.
Oh, that's true.
Just putting a bunch of fuel in it.
You won the Kei. Not stopping. I'm buying the other type of Kei car. You all know that. So that's
all right. So
Paul showed
a cappuccino
in a Mira. That's
all right. So we got a couple ideas. We've got the Kei Car or Kei Car Rally. We got the slow car fast rally, and there's a few good ideas here. But I don't think we'd be that limited to. We wouldn't want to limit it that much. But we'll keep talking about it, and hopefully we'll have some ideas soon. So
I'm looking into renting a dyno, a portable dyno.
Okay.
Damn sure. 130
nice.
Power, you're gone. Just kidding.
Nice. Well, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for joining us, Adam. It was a pleasure having you. And I know you've talked about this before in the past, that you're a sort of a podcast killer. Can you just touch on that just briefly before we end this one?
Well, so foolishly, I tried to have my own show, and no slight against my co-hosts. We did not know what we were doing. We did it because it was the thing to do in 2016 or whatever, when everyone and their mom was like, I'm going to do a podcast, because it was a new thing at that point. So I had that, and I think kind of dragged that one along for probably the better part of a year. And we had some guests on, and it was fine, but it just timing and everything like that, it didn't end up working out.
Yeah.
So then after that one, you may remember a show called Camden Tubbed that existed.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, right. Most of us haven't. Side note, that's how I know a lot of the people that I know now, is through that show. So I really think the hosts of that show were doing the Lord's work in a way that they really didn't even know that they were doing, introducing all these people. But so out of the ashes of my show, the hosts of Camden Tubbed plucked both me and the other host of my show that were still interested in podcasting, and we were going to be like rotating guest hosts. But at that point, they'd been doing that show for 4 years, and it had kind of run its course. And so I was the last guest host, and then the show ended. And then there was a show called Clutch Kick. I like how I'm saying there was.
Yeah, I know. It's sad. It's sad.
There was a show called Clutch Kick that I, strangely enough, again, was a listener to, much like Camden Tubbed. And one of their hosts left for personal reasons, just kind of ran out of time to do the show. And one of the existing hosts was like, hey, you're a cool guy. Do you want to be a host on our show? They had like an open casting call, whatever you want to call it, and a short list of people that they wanted. And I happened to be on that list. And so I was on that show for, again, probably like 6 or 9 months. And then everybody got busy. I don't really know. I don't know what happened there. But that show kind of ended. So that one died. So now it's kind of a running joke. If you see me, if you know what I look like, you can thank me or accost me for killing your favorite podcasts. There are several that I haven't died that I don't think I'll ever, or that I haven't killed that I don't think I'll ever be on now. But yeah, it just kind of became like a thing. I ended up ending 2 podcasts that weren't mine, and then one that I was part of starting and didn't really go anywhere. It's a lot harder than most people think it is.
Oh, totally.
You can't just talk into a microphone for an hour and a half and expect people to be like, wow, this is interesting. They're really breaking new ground here. Like at a certain point, it just becomes you and your friends just kind of talking to each other, unless you really know what you're doing and you have a structure and stuff like that. So
sure.
And the time to run social media, that is the hardest part that nobody tells you about, is you have to promote yourself. And if you have a full-time job that isn't running that social media, it's very difficult
Totally
to get people to listen to your show.
Yep. And on that note, I just want to announce this is the last episode of the Hello Road podcast.
Good job, Adam.
Good job for Pete. Yes.
Auto off topic. I'm coming for you.
Oh, damn.
Yes. We should kill off some. We should kill off some of our competition and then have you just go up here on their coast. Yeah.
Brad and Andrew know about that joke, and I don't think I've ever met either one of them, but they know of the joke, and I don't think they ever want me on. So. But no, it's been a pleasure being on the show. I've been a listener since you guys started it, and I'm always excited for new, fresh faces and in the podcast sphere, and give me something else to listen to while I'm sitting at my desk at work.
Nice.
Or watching the YouTube channel too. I will go out and say, not to fangirl too much, but I like the Titan video.
The Titan video. Thank you. You're one of the few people that likes my Nissan Titan video.
I laughed through most of it. I really enjoyed it. I could tell that you really put a lot of work into that one. So
I put way too much work in for 4,000 views or whatever it has right now. Yeah. Oh my God. I filmed for like 3 days on that stupid thing. But it was fun. That's the thing, is like, I'm having a blast. I don't care if anybody doesn't watch this, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
And I like that you kind of become like, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. Like,
you don't have to be nice.
Like, you're like Hoovy now, because you've got a shop that's like taking care of your fleet of stuff. You have a mechanic with a likable personality.
Sure. I'm a low budget Hoovy that can't afford a McLaren. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Nice.
Yes. And I get that you do. You forgot you have a McLaren.
Oh, I do. I got the Pontiac. I got I do have a McLaren. So yeah, I'm pretty much on par, I guess.
Pretty much on par.
Yeah, but he's way better at, like, Hoovy's got like a car. He does a few videos with it and he manages to sell it. I just managed to like just push it off in the corner of my yard because it's such a pain in the ass to sell a car. Oh God. It's so hard. I'm an idiot. Like, I definitely bought cars for the show and definitely have been having a much harder time selling them than I thought I would. So anyway, so where can everybody find you on the interwebs, on the social medias, Adam? If you even want people to follow you. If you don't want people to follow you, you can just say,
I don't care. Like, my Instagram is 90% cars.
Your dog.
And then my dog, and then my girlfriend, and then me, in that order. So if you want to follow me, I'm at Hove, HOVE.AB on Instagram. Like I said, follow me. I post music that nobody cares about to my story. I post pictures of my dog. She's adorable. She is our fur child. Also my girlfriend, who's also adorable. You're great. Thank you for letting me record in our living room. All right. They've totally derailed this. But yeah, so find me on Instagram or don't. I don't care.
Yes. What about you, Paul?
I like that. Find me on Instagram or don't.
Or don't. Yes.
Well, dear listeners, you can find me at Paul's Finest Hour on both Instagram and Twitter. And I posted a picture up before we started recording tonight.
Some exciting new hot charade content coming out. I'm excited.
But that's for another episode. We can talk about that fun journey that was. But yeah, Paul's Finest Hour, Instagram and Twitter. And
nice.
What about you?
You can find me at Mr. Ethan Tufts on Twitter and Instagram, and youtube.com/HelloRoad. Coming soon, a video about the Toyota Previa that I just purchased.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Fun fact. After I bought it, I learned that the odometer was rolled back, but we'll get into that later. And also 2 of the 3 doors don't open, but that's what we can.
I need to. Oh man, I can't wait for that video so I can find out which door does open.
Yes.
I want to know which of the 3, not including the hatch, actually opens.
Yeah, it's not convenient. I will just tell you that. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. You'll probably hear from Adam again in the future. We'll have him on again.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.